Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Chuck Jones Gallery ComicCon at Home, night number 3. And who better to spend a Friday night with than the world-renowned, legendary. I've seen the pins. I've seen the everything. It's absolutely fantastic. Fabio Napoleoni, welcome into the Creativeside chat, sir. And happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. This is our first time we have actually met. I've heard a ton of stories about you from everybody. What a great person you are. And I have to admit, just in the leading up to this conversation, we were literally laughing our rear ends off. So I'm hoping that it continues for the next amount of minutes that we're on.
Well, I've gotten to, yeah, this is our first time meeting together. So we're like, why not throw it in a Zoom meeting? And it's ComicCon, and we've got some really awesome stuff tonight. So part of this whole Creativeside chat and Chuck Jones is we've all been inspired to some degree, some great degree by Chuck, and I know you have as well. And some people may know some of the storylines, some people may not. And what I found fascinating, especially in just some of what you were talking about when we were before we started, was your connection to Chuck, what, you know, like that influence there with you and how that kind of sparked things. So what I wanted to do to kick this off in the Creativeside chat tonight is I wanted to throw it to you so we could get to know you a little bit more. So Fabio, tell us a little bit about you, what that Chuck influence has been like, but how did you even start? Like, where did this all start?
Well, I've been an artist pretty much my entire life. I never took it serious. I always did it as a fun way to, you know, express myself and just have fun with it. I was a kid that was born with asthma, and my mother basically would not let me out of the house. So she would give me basically coloring pages, put me down in front of a TV. That was basically my first introduction to Warner Brothers and Chuck Jones and the vast amount of characters right there from when I probably 4 or 5 years old. As I got older and we moved around, art was always a part of my life, but I never took it serious until about 2004. My daughter was born. She was born with a major heart defect. It basically changed how I viewed life and life for myself, my wife, and our son, who was 6 years old at the time. That experience led to the art that I create today with the characters you see behind me. In 2008, I was signed with a publisher. That publisher introduced me to the Chuck Jones Gallery and Scott and Mike and that great gang there at the Chuck Jones Gallery. And I believe in 2012 or 2013, they had reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in doing a piece for Chuck's 100th birthday. And that was the beginning of how every year during Comic-Con, I have done a piece featuring a Chuck character, and it just varies from here time to time. But that's pretty much how I started. Then when I was a little boy, introduced to Chuck, and then now this is what I do once a year. And it's probably, I create a lot of originals throughout the year, but these ones are always just fun for me. Just because I get to try something different, and I've been given that privilege to work with the Jones family. It's amazing to me.
So you got some great pieces behind you, and we'll get to those and be able to show those kind of things. And what I love about what you said too is like you found moments and that you were able to connect with in Chuck's films and the work that he did, and that kind of it left an impression on you. So when you were younger and your mom was unloading art supplies on you, we're watching the Chuck Jones films on TV. Like I did Saturday morning cartoons all the time. Were there some favorites that stuck out to you that you were like, man, I love that film, or I love that character in this setting?
For some reason, I've always loved when Elmer Fudd was just so angry at Bugs, and for some reason he would pop out and he would be, you know, dressed with a cute little bonnet and a dress, and he would give him the biggest smooch on the planet, and then, you know, he would just get so angry. I love just that the humor behind that, you know, the insecurity of one character to the other, but then there's a good humor in it that I think it's just, it transcends even, it's endless. You know, I today, even in building these pieces, I catch myself looking up specifically Elmer Fudd or Bugs Bunny or Tom and Jerry, and then, you know, 4 hours later, I'm just watching cartoons. I'm no longer, my mind that was focused on achieving a goal, now it's just watching cartoons.
Which leads to some pretty awesome artwork. So, I mean, really, it's a win-win.
Exactly.
So in there, was there another, like a specific film that you're like, I've got my favorite, you know, do you have your favorite film of Chuck Jones that you were like, this is it?
Oh man. I like and I totally forgot, and I think Scott has sent me an email, and The Wolf and the Sheepdog. The clocking into work, that's their job. That to me always fascinated me. The same thing with the Roadrunner and Wile E. It's just that back and forth, but it kind of makes you think, to me, that, you know, when they're off the clock, they're sitting at a bar having a drink, or they're enjoying a comical tale. That's the part about those cartoons that I find humorous. It's the sort of, yeah, I know what they're doing now, but what about the after hours?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that I've always found humorous.
So something, you know, you've created your own world, right? Your own character, you know, and you mentioned where that kind of origin comes from. And
Mm-hmm.
I've repeated it 10 times before we got on so that I wouldn't mess up this name, Marcenivo. And, right? Did I get it? Cheers.
Spot on.
Cheers to you. I got that right. And so in Marcenivo, what was the origin? So like Chuck had his characters, right? And Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner and Marvin the Martian, Michigan J. Frog, the list goes on. When you created Marcenivo, that you created an entire world that he gets to interact with. How did that come about?
Well, prior to my wife finding out that she was pregnant, and she was 20 weeks pregnant when we found out Lauren had the heart condition. Prior to that, I was just basically doing art, whatever it sold, is sort of pop art stuff, nothing with meaning. And then with experiencing, having to go through doctor's appointments and knowing what they're going to tell us, you know, that it's not good. So I started to create these little characters that sort of evoked an emotion. And with Marcenivo, I basically took little characters that I had done prior to and put them all together. We were in the hospital in Portland, and we basically lived there for about 4.5 months. And during that time, I brought my sketchbook. My wife was fortunate enough that her job let her pretty much live there for the time that ever she needed. But I went back and forth, a 4-hour drive back home and 4 hours back, because I still needed to work a little bit. But in between there, I worked on different characters. Marcenivo was just basically, I wanted to use a rag doll because I wanted to show that he had been used and loved and he had been around for a period of time. And that's basically pretty much how I think we all felt at that time, is just used and just worn down from everything that was happening with our daughter. And I didn't expect that to take on the sort of the emotions that it led to people. I didn't tell anybody when I first started posting pictures of Marcenivo where he came from. And nobody knew that my daughter was in the hospital. Nobody knew that she had had multiple surgeries. We kept that pretty hush. We're private. We're pretty private people. But for some reason, people were drawn to him. And so I started telling who he is, and he's a rag doll, and he's loved in the pocket, and he's filled with love. That all stems from that time that we were my daughter, and the world that he lives in. Pretty much what it comes down to is he is the doll that gets passed down from one generation to another to another. So he's multiple generations of being passed from one child to another within that family. And in this case, the thought behind Marcenivo is that he's still in a box waiting for that new child that was born to come home. That's why his world looks the way it does, and it's always imagination and the characters he builds. You don't see him in everyday regular life sitting on a couch or riding in a car, because he technically is still in that box, waiting for this newborn child that's in the hospital to come home.
And I love that story, because when you talk to any artist, right, and you hear about their story, why they put the things in that they do, and you find an attachment and you realize that things weren't done just because, and then all of a sudden you start to look at the artwork maybe a little bit differently. And I know that's been my case in numerous times where I've gotten to hear the stories and what goes back, and you just attach yourself. And I love that story, because if you look at all the pieces that you put it in, and that love, and that doll that gets to experience all these things, was there something in a moment where you started like putting in that imagination and scenery, and you're like, and it hits you because maybe that was even more personal than you thought it would be?
That's a fantastic question. And there's only one image that comes to mind, because when I had signed with my publisher in 2008, I had sold everything I had created. I sold on eBay for multiple amount of years, never kept a single piece of art. But in 2010, we were we had planned a family trip to come here to Orlando. And Lauren just wasn't tall enough to hit any of the rides, because her growth was not the best due to her condition. So I had done a piece called Possession of Hope. And I created that piece, and in that image, Marcenivo is standing near a tree that's, it marks the feet of, 1 foot, 2 feet, 2 foot, 3 foot. And he's just under that, which is what Lauren was. She was just under 36. There's 4 small hearts at the bottom, which indicate the surgeries she already had at that time. She already had 4 major heart operations. And then there was a big heart at the bottom, which meant that we knew there was a big one coming. And so that signifies that. But the part that's the most important in that piece is he looks like he's, like he's just been arrested. He's standing in front of and it's marking his height, and he's holding that little sign that tells you what you're being, this county of whatever, what you're being charged with. And the sign says Possession of Hope, and the serial number on there is all of our birth years. So, there's 72, 04, 98, and 72 again, and that's what that stands for. And the day he was arrested is 12/27/04, which isn't Lauren's birthday. That's the day she received her prosthetic valve. So the doctor at that time, when it had gone successful, he came in and he told my wife and I that, here's her second chance at life. So in that piece, I sort of gave, that's the day where everything had changed for her. And it did. I mean, she's 16 years old now, and beautiful young girl, healthy, you would never guess. She has some obstacles ahead of her as she gets older, but other than that, she's, your crazy 16-year-old with dark hair and funky eyeballs, and she's just, it's her.
Yes, I have teenagers as well, so I can absolutely. I love that story, and to be able to put an expression into your art, right, and especially for it to be that personal, that's kind of how we get what's inside of us out, and I love that story. That's amazing. Getting into and transitioning a little bit to things that so that we go from an ultra personal piece that hits you in that, right? And then maybe is there a piece that you're like, I can't believe I got to do that? Like, you got to do your own thing. You got to bring your world and you attached it to something, and holy crap.
Right there. This one.
The bugs?
Yes, because I was not kidding you when we were talking before. When I was asked to do this, I'm not kidding you. And he said, I want to drop some swear words, but I'm not going to because this piece right here, this is what I envisioned him coming. You know, Bugs pops out of that little hole, and he's in this tomb, or he's in this world, and he's popping all over. And I thought, what if he came out of my world, you know? And Marcenivo is instead of trying to bonk him or shoot him or cage him or blow him up, he's offering him a little heart. You know, I thought that'd be fantastic, you know? And, you know, it doesn't bite. The little heart, nothing's going to hurt you. Here it is. It's just a cute little thing. The one thing I worried about, man, was literally it's like 10% of Bugs Bunny. And I thought, there's no way they're going to go, we gave you this chance to do this piece for Chuck's 100th, and you're going to give him 10% of Bugs? You know, I'm like, how is that going to happen?
Can we get a close-up of that while you're
when they came back and said they loved it, I'm telling you, man, it gives me chills thinking about it right now. It's so exciting to me, and that's probably the one thing that I've done that has surprised me, that I was like, and I tell this story every time somebody asks me if that's available, where they can get it, because it's just, I'm still amazed today that they loved it with, you know, it's eyeballs and ears.
Can we get, it's one thing to show a picture on the screen. It's another thing for you to actually handle the piece itself and show it on camera. Do you mind pulling that off the wall and getting a little closer?
Yeah, sure. Here's the funny, this is a mixed media. So this right here is I took the original size print, and what I did is I basically painted, there's, I think, one more additional heart in there. They're all red. In his head is not a carrot. It's a little red heart. And what I've done, I basically drew a forest sort of in the background. Here, this is all empty. This little shadow forest, I've added that in. I've added this whole entire top is, I don't know if you can really see, but you can see the gloss and the brush
strokes. You can see that, absolutely.
Oh yeah, you can see all of that through there. So this, and then every one of the hearts has been repainted. I think this is the only one here that's originally red, but I painted over that as well. You know, Bugs has highlights. Whoever has this piece, I believe this one's sold, but whoever has this piece, and if they have the original print, they're gonna see there's a massive difference. Actually, Nicole, you're so good. So look at this. So I have, here's the print.
There is a difference.
Yeah, see, so this is the print from 2013, and then this is today's version.
Oh, dude. All right, so I do know that one is sold, the one that you're holding right there, which is freaking incredible.
Yeah, this is a fun piece to do.
Well, and for Chuck's 100. So, you know, what's funny is we were at the same event. We just never met each other.
Really?
Yeah, we were ships passing in the night. That was my first foray into the Chuck universe, aside from growing up with it.
Yeah.
So that's hilarious. So, I wanted to mention too, you know, you talked about like the embellishing that you did on that and all the additions. You might have a few pen and inks.
Yeah, so here is again, so the beauty of working with Scott is I almost want to throw some other gallery managers a little bit under the bus, a little bit, not too much, but you know, I get a request often, and not demands, but sort of a forceful request. With Scott is it's like, this would be great if Marcenivo was by this tree wearing a ball cap with it, you know. But working with Scott, he just goes Foghorn Leghorn, Tom and Jerry, a Peanuts character. You know, he doesn't drive it, and I always love that. Just because it gives me the ability to just wonder and see what I can create with. So I have, when I talked about that brief stint before we went live with Peanuts, I had done, I had a vision of, I want to do a little peppermint patty piece. And I have a little character now. Her name is Molly. And she's Dragon Boy's little sister.
Yeah. All right.
So I did this piece for these guys. I don't know if you can see it right here, where they're pretty much, you know, they're kind of wearing the same outfit. This one's called Besties.
Love that.
So I love this piece. I found this paper, and it is super thick, and it looks like gauze, honestly. And really? I thought, would I be able to paint on that? And it is like 140 pounds, and it's beautiful, beautiful paper. I've never used it before. I've always used a specific type of paper, but I wanted to try it, and the way the edges are deckled on it, and all. Anyway, let's listen. I'm carrying on about paper. How sad is that?
Hey, I could talk paper all day, so yeah.
But I love this piece. I thought it was really good. Molly doesn't make it into a lot of pieces, but I thought it was fitting for both of them to be like, you know, they're besties and they're hugging. I think this piece is available.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, but it's a fantastic piece. And if I were to, you know, frame this, I definitely wouldn't put it behind a mat. I would definitely leave the deckled edges just simply because.
Would you float it?
Oh, for sure. Because the edges on it are so ununiform, and it's got this beautiful wrinkle to it. I love it. And then, so this one here, I laughed because I really, really, really wanted to do a foghorn piece. And I looked through, like I said, I got into this hole of watching one thing after another, and I'm not a chicken hawk, you know, so
yes.
I started looking at all these, and I really wanted to do a chicken hawk. But I thought, you know, with everything that's happening in the world today, and the marching, the parades, and everything that's going on, and people always say just because you're a chicken doesn't mean you're brave, you know. So I thought this is kind of funny, and chickens come in every color, shape, size, and everything. So I just thought it was humorous to put this one together, and there you go. And if that does not tell you what today is,
right?
I don't know.
Yes.
Exactly. You know, it's just humorous. I love it. And I just love the fact that Scott asked me, you know, that was one of the suggestions that he had thrown in his email to me, and I was like, oh, this is going to happen.
Absolutely.
And this is done on the same paper as well. It's I don't know if you can catch the texture on that. See that right there?
Yeah. Is that like a cold press?
Yeah, exactly. It's got like this beautiful gauze vibe to it, and the edges are all, I don't know. I love it.
Now what medium did you use then to paint with?
Oh, so it's it's acrylic. So you know when you know this. I mean, it's there. Here it is, acrylic.
Right.
And my studio right now is a complete wreck. Because my son and I, before he heads back to college, we plan on taking the whole thing apart and doing the walls, doing everything else, rearranging the printers and everything. So, but it's a mess. And for me to paint this then and not leave fingerprints or finger marks through it, I'm telling you right now, someone should just give me some sort of a world prize for that, because it doesn't happen. That's almost impossible.
And that's a lot of white space to leave a fingerprint on.
I'm a little bit of a slob, as my wife would say.
It's kind of more of that.
Studio's
it's the neat artist. It's the artists with the neat studios that are all put together. Those are the ones you got to worry about. Exactly.
That's what I say. It's just like nobody trusts a skinny chef, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Right. So, in talking to Scott, it was kind of funny because I thought, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give these guys these 7 or 8 pieces and everything's going to be good. And then Scott was like, hey, is there any way you can get something else done for me before Friday? So
was this yesterday at 3 p.m.?
Is there any way you could squeeze a little bit more in there? So again, so there was a couple of things I wanted to do because again, he had given me a little list and I'm like, oh, I've never done this. I've never done that. So, but here is K9.
Oh, I love K9.
So this little piece I thought is humorous, and it is titled "Welcome to the Family." So there's a little green heart down here. See a little heart with the little antennas. Yeah. The only time that little heart has ever appeared on anything, it's been the Chuck Jones pieces.
Really?
So that's I don't paint green hearts in anybody else's artwork. It's just for the Seriously piece that I did for the gallery.
Dude, can I see that one? Because I didn't see that in the preview stuff. Can I see that one more time?
Dude, I just sent it to him like 2 hours ago.
Oh, that would be why I haven't seen it yet. Can we? And that's I'm assuming, and Scott's going to tell me that it's available. And dude, Marcenivo can wear that helmet like a pro. Yeah,
listen. I started doing this. I came out. I finished it before it was all shaded. It was just a drawing in the paper. I showed my wife, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's adorable." And then when I painted it, and then I brought it back out, and then this one here. So I like the Joe Cool character of Snoopy, and I always liked him when he has his glasses on. There's just something in the smile. So in this piece, this one, very positive. This one is "Our future is looking brighter." And here's little Snoop.
Oh.
With the little bluebirds.
I love your lines too and your inking, man.
So they're just waiting for that little glimmer of hope, and it's just coming down. And I just thought, with everything that's happening today, it's always good to keep a positive light on everything. So yeah, this was I love the smile. I mean, and Charles Schultz is another one too that I just. The simplicity in the drawings, but at the same time being able to capture an emotion as simple as it is I think you can have super detailed, beautiful landscapes that just blow your mind because technique wise you're just like, holy cow, this guy's this is a prodigy, this is beautiful. But to be able to capture someone's attention or emotion or bring them back to some sort of nostalgic feeling in a character that doesn't exist, a chicken with fingers. You know what I mean? It's to be able to have someone look at that character and be like, that is amazing. That reminds me of, I think that's the beauty of what Chuck and Schultz and Dr. Seuss. Absolutely. Those guys, that's all amazing.
So I want to take this opportunity while you're showing those things because I didn't see the last two clearly because Scott probably requested them at 3 p.m. last night and checked it out. But Scott Ryder, can you put up the bit.ly link for where people can go to view the catalog what we've got for Fabio? It's I've already gone through it. It's some wicked stuff. So it's everybody has seen that it's a bit.ly link. So bit.ly Napoleoni Studio, and it's got the full catalog what we've got here that you guys can see. And we're kind of cycling through some images here. I just was literally watching the Bugs Bunny run with my kids while I had them with me today because they love Bugs Bunny, and they're 2, 4, and then my older ones love him. So Witch Hazel was on. They crack up at that every time. Could you, as we're kind of cycling through some of these pieces, and I know some are on the back wall, Michigan J Frog, you can never go wrong with the Michigan J. Tell me about some of the, what you were thinking of when you went into this piece, and then kind of a broader question from that. What are your influences? Like, where are you getting influenced from in the art that you look at, as you create pieces?
So I think that one, I'll tackle that one first. Influence, obviously from the birth of our daughter, it played a huge role, I think, till about 2011, just because it was up and down on, we didn't know what was going to happen, and it felt like every other day something was going wrong. But in 2011, had a surgery, boom, now we're going on 9 years, beautiful. So of course, life for us changed. You know, we started looking at things in a positive nature, like, wow, we're not going to the hospital, we're not going these visits, and we're not. So life for us changed. But what I noticed is, as I was traveling more, I went from traveling 2 times a year in 2009 to last year, I believe we went to 17 different places. So, you know, you meet a ton of people, and you see the effect of how the art changes those individuals. So in listening and understanding and the emails and the messages on the fan page, private messaging through Instagram, listening to everybody, how they view the artwork, how it has affected them, that has affected me, which then brings my mind into another perspective or a different view of how to create art. Because there are pieces that I have done that may have nothing to do with me or my personal life or anything like that, but it is how someone else's story has touched me. And then I start thinking about that, and you start to, and I'm still to today, I'm amazed that this is what I do for a living. I'm like, this is what I do. My wife and I, we hang out and have lunch, and we chill, and we get to talk to cool people, and we get to travel. And that's where the artwork today is influenced greatly by the people I have met throughout the last 9 years. As far as these guys, so Dragon Boy, the story behind him, he's a little boy, and his imagination runs wild. So he can picture himself using 2 feathers to fly around the world. You know, his, and I said, but I really wanted to squeeze Draco into the piece, which is his, sort of his sidekick. It's a little dragon. But I thought if I squeezed him in there, then Michigan would just be too small, and he needed to be that part that draws you in. So what that is, here is a little boy that probably watches his Saturday morning cartoons, and he's seeing himself in that scene where he's performing with this frog in front of an audience, which is you and I, and he's doing everything else. He's singing the song, and as the title is, Break a Leg, you know, that's what they tell everybody that goes out and dances or performs, and that's the good luck, you know, that's the good luck. So that is what that piece is. And the stars in the background, I put them there sort of as wishes that are coming, that are and will come true. So that's where the stars are. That's why the stars are in the background.
I love that. And, you know, and that's why I love talking to the artist about what goes into their work, because you can see a piece, right? And like what you just described there, and you can take things in, and then you get the description of everything. I would have never guessed that with the stars, right? I would have, who knows what it would come. Maybe it's like, hey, this is my big star show or whatever. But to have that kind of meaning in it, like that brings something even more special to what goes into the piece, which is what attaches you to that. So, you know, you had mentioned stories that people, you know, when something and that they've come to you and they say, you know, this piece touched me in this way, or you know, or this was happening and then I got this piece. I imagine that you have quite a few. Is there something, I'm not even going to say recent, just something that really comes to top of mind in a story that you got from somebody that was touched by what you did, that kind of took you back? It took you back for a second to where you almost had to kind of pause.
When I first started, one of my very first shows here in Orlando, I think it was maybe 2010. About a year I was in the business. I come back here to Orlando, and this older gentleman had to be in his 60s, I would say. He came in, he had his son and his daughter with him, and he bought, at the time, was Never Abandon Hope, which is a gigantic piece of paper. And I remember back then, I think the piece was $600. I think it was $600. And I thought to myself, like, who is going to buy a piece of paper for $600? These people don't even know me. They don't know the story. But this gentleman came in and he told me how he saw the piece and it brought him to tears. And he went on to explain that he was a Vietnam veteran and he was a medic. And he had seen horrible things. And that piece reminded him of that. And I was like, holy cow, that's an insane story. That's just the beginning. Then he goes to tell me that his wife had passed away from cancer. And both of his children were very, very young. And he had to raise them both as a single dad. He loved the woman, the mother of his kids. He never remarried and completely focused on raising his 2 kids. And this gentleman broke down in front of me and cried. And I thought, it was uncomfortable for me because I'd never experienced anything like that. And after taking it in, I thought, here's this man. He's been through all of this, and he broke down in front of me. And there was a crowd of people behind him that were all paying attention to his story. And that, I think that was probably sort of the hammer to the head that was like, this is, I've done something here that I definitely should not take advantage of, pay attention, understand, listen, be appreciative of every person that buys a piece of art from you. And I've tried to do that ever since then, because that is the one story. How many times have I told that? That is the one story that I always go to when somebody says, what is the one story that has been told to you? And that is the one that always sticks out. I've heard, man, some brutal stuff that my wife and everybody in the art gallery has broken down into tears while someone's sharing that experience in front of 80 people. But that is the one that made me realize that, this is something that I enjoy doing, and there's a reason why.
That's an awesome story. And I don't know how you kept it together, because I probably would have broke down with the guy.
Dude, I've lost it. I mean, snot bubbles, tears. It is, there are people that are probably watching that have seen me at shows. I've had to get up from the table and just walk away for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I just lose it in the moment. When somebody wants to hug you and they've told you the worst story on the planet and you just can't help it. You just feel that emotion with them. And then I'm like, who cares, man? My wife hands me a tissue because she's crying too. And then usually, a friend of mine, and my buddy Dan used to travel with me, and he'd come over and he'd be like, get ready. He would say that to me. He'd like, get ready. And I'm like, why? He goes, because I was back there crying for like 5 minutes. Just get ready. It's going to be a good one. I'm like,
oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Because he heard it and he was like, if it made him cry, he was like, yeah, dude, you're going to fall apart.
Right.
But that's the plus side of what I do, and I enjoy it.
So, and I love that, because there's so much more to purpose and meaning, and like you do this to make a living, right? And you're blessed to make a living, but what you're doing is blessing other people, and really you find your purpose. And I find that to be, a high caliber of respect to guys like you, gals like you, who not only do what you do, but do what you do, and you're so giving of yourself and your own emotions to people, and you're just human. And you treat other people like human. And, you hear some stories of people that get maybe a little too involved with themselves, and what I love about Chuck and bringing that back into Chuck, and why I think, what you're that personification of that, that kind of attitude and character that Chuck had, was never take always take your work, but never yourself seriously, and you can tell, because you can still be very good at what you're doing, and then yet pour that right back out to somebody else, and join them in that humble moment. So I'm curious, and I know this from, my own experience as well, but, you mentioned that your wife, and you get to travel, you get to do all kinds of stuff. So your wife gets to see this kind of nuttiness, right? And all the shenanigans that happen. So is there something when you guys were, you're out you're doing a show, you're visiting wherever, and you're, I don't even know what, maybe you're not embarrassed by it, and she's like, please no.
Oh, dude, it happens every day. It's happened like 4 times since we've been on this. Over, she's like, oh my God, why'd you say that?
He's like, he's not going to go into that one. So is there something, and then did it ever turn into a piece of art?
Well, it's kind of there's a 2-part story to that one, but with my wife, it's kind of funny because we still don't, like, as the years have gone by, we've been in multiple situations where we're at a restaurant, or we're in a hotel, or we're in an elevator, and we're just being foolish. I'm like literally foolish 100% of the time. This lady right here, 27 years, and she's still here, so she's, you know what I mean? She's the one that's a little woo-hoo.
Yeah.
So, the glutton for punishment. So there are times when we're at a show and people will come up and like, we were in an elevator with you guys. And her and I just look at each other like, was I grabbing you by? What was I doing? And she's like, we're seriously like in panic mode. Like, what were we saying? What were we doing? Were we being foolish? That's happened to us multiple times. We've been eating dinner and we're joking around and doing whatever. And people next to us show up at a show. And they're like, we were next to you guys when you guys were having breakfast. I'm like, what? What are we talking about? Did we say anything bad about somebody? So, it's...
Did they use the quotes where they like, when you were having breakfast?
Yeah. So, but those things have happened more times than, it's really weird. It's weird. But something that happened over a story, and I created a piece of art for it. A couple of years ago, I was in California. I actually had done, I believe, a show for Chuck at the gallery, and then I had gone up to Irvine and Westminster doing something else up there. And the night we were supposed to, the show was over, it's super late, and my buddy and I are just sitting and we're having a couple of drinks and hanging out, telling stories. And this gentleman comes over and he asked us if we ever play the game euchre. And I was like, never heard of it. So he proceeds to tell us how to play euchre, but in his 52 card deck or whatever, he only has like 36 cards because he's lost the rest of them. So we're like, don't you need all the cards? He's like, no, we'll just play it this way. And we're like, I don't know how that's gonna work, So he continues. So this gentleman was intoxicated. And now we stayed up, and another couple comes over, a younger couple comes over, and they're like, what are you guys playing? Euchre. And they sit down and they're like, you're missing like half the deck. So he looks over at me and serious, he goes, I have a question to ask you. Have you ever regretted a swim? And I thought, what kind of a question is that? Have I ever regretted a swim? So we just thought it was funny. As he's telling us what he does, he's a pharmaceutical rep from Florida. And we're like, oh, when are you leaving? He said at 6 o'clock. And we're like, oh, in the morning? And he's like, yes. And we're like, it's 6 o'clock right now. So he never made his flight. We never heard from the gentleman ever again. We don't know. Hopefully he made it back to Florida. And the worst part is we were in Newport and he had to drive to LAX.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah, so it's quite a jaunt. He was not going to make it at all. Because if it was John Wayne, he had maybe a glimmer.
Yeah.
So that piece on the flight back home, we got stuck in DC. And we got stuck in DC. It was snowing in Maine and blah, 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 and this and that and whatever. And we were hungry, and I talked my buddy into walking the streets of DC. And he was like, this is a bad mistake. I'm going to call your wife. So, like, I'm 10 years old. He does call my wife, and my wife gets on the phone and tells me to go back to the hotel. So we do. We order pizza. on the inside of the box of pizza, I drew, have you ever regretted a swim?
Oh.
And yeah, on the inside of this pizza box,
yes.
I drew it. So my buddy, as we're landing in Bangor, Maine, it hits him. Oh my God, man, you left that pizza in that drawing. I literally covered the entire pizza box in this drawing. He goes, no one's ever going to know. No one's ever going to know. That person probably destroyed it, threw it away in the garbage, doesn't even. So then I created an original out of it, which then we sold the following year in Art Center. Exactly a year later, I sold the original from that experience.
So somebody's like walking around right now, right? They're on this thing, and they're not going to say who they are, and they're going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know any pizza box. And someone's poking them next to him, and be like, you got that pizza box? Like, don't tell Fabio. Nothing ever happened. That's awesome, man. So as we again, I wanted to pull up we've got like an amazing collection of stuff from you, and Scott Ryder's got the bit.ly link and at Napoleon Studio, and then we have obviously the chuckjonescatalog.com/Fob. I think we just chopped most of your name and went with the FAB. I don't know, we'll see when it pops up. But when so we got some amazing stuff, and this is Comic-Con week, right? So this is, we can't, like, I'd be out in San Diego right now. My wife, my two, I have many children, but I would be the smallest ones, right? Unless my 16-year-old son really was like, you better not leave me. And so we would be all out there in person and hanging out and all that kind of good stuff. But there's what I love about it. There it is. All right. I gotta transition a little Comic-Con stuff in here when we pull off on these characters. Dude, please tell me about this piece.
So I went with this piece because my 16-year-old daughter, Ben, you can't get her to sit and watch any superhero movie. It doesn't matter who is in it. You can't do it. But this movie, Black Panther, we talked her. I mean, my son, me, and my wife were like, Lauren, please, we want to go see it. Please, just come. We weren't going to leave her here. Just please. That kid was on the edge of her seat the entire movie. And from this movie forward, she's watched everything.
That was her entry, man. That was her gateway.
That was her gateway, Black Panther. And now, I mean, what is it not Endgame? Was it Endgame?
Yeah, that's the last one. Well, no, Spider-Man Far From Home would technically be the last one.
Yeah, but I don't know if she's seen that or not. But at the end, she sat there at the edge of her seat, watching Endgame, and I looked over and I was like, holy cow, is that kid crying?
Stop. See? Come on.
I couldn't believe it. Tears. Just like waterfall.
And then she looked over at you, and you were crying because we're all crying, because as soon as that kid says cheeseburgers, forget it, dude. You got a daughter. I got daughters. You lose it. I can't go past cheeseburgers. I still cry. Go ahead. Continue.
No. We were all, it was horrible, man. We all sat there, and I looked over, and none of us are looking at each other. Because we're all like, no, Robert Downey Jr., whatever, man.
Right.
It's not, who cares? Whatever, And but my wife and I don't know how old you are, Ben, but we grew up with Robert Downey Jr. And when he had that stint in the 90s, we were waiting for that thing where today Robert Downey Jr. was found, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And it didn't happen. And that's one of the, I think, beautiful things about the world, that we've lost a lot of beautiful people, a lot of talented people. But that guy probably would have crushed my wife and I. Probably, and we were young. We were in our 20s when we thought, oh my God, he's gonna die. They're gonna wake up in a gutter somewhere. Yep. But the end of that movie, and then all four of us, my son, my daughter, but especially her, because you couldn't talk her into watching anything. Dude, we took her to a Billy Joel concert, and she slept the entire time. No joke, man. Those tickets weren't cheap.
Right? Yes. You're like, you will wake up and you will watch this.
He didn't start the fire and then fell asleep.
Which could very well make a painting in and of itself.
Yes, exactly. But no, it's yeah. So that's why I did that piece. I thought it was you know, I don't know. I just thought it was I enjoyed that film basically because it didn't start. I think a majority of it is not action filled. It's a good backstory.
Yep.
It gives you so much to the character, and then it, you know, of course, it leads you to whatever's going to happen next. But I think that's what I enjoyed the most about Black Panther.
Well, and I love that story. Obviously, with everything you do, there's meaning to it, and this is all available as you can see in the link. I may end up just grabbing that one because I'm a huge Marvel MCU fan. I'm a huge Batman fan. I know we discussed a little bit earlier. I'm like, what level of nerd do you want to get to, right? And I'm like, all right, I'll tamp down my nerdness, okay? But you know, I as we go through too, and Scott, if you can put up some of the other pieces, what I wanted to highlight too is you've got some. We have that Tom and Jerry piece, and then we'll get into some other pieces after this. But go ahead, and Scott, and we'll go through the next. This piece right here, and this one, forgive me, the name on this one is
The Quiet Before the Storm.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, this probably was probably the hardest one for me to pick, the positioning, the way I wanted them to look. I really wanted to pick 1952 as a year. There was, oh my God, where they're sort of swashbuckling. Oh my God, he's got his little cousin in there, and they're
yes, I know which one you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
So that was made in 1952, and I really wanted to do something with that. I looked at images, watched clips. I looked and looked and looked because my mother was born in 1952. So I really wanted to work with something, and I wasn't feeling it. And I didn't want to just slap something together. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I just didn't want to slap something together that I thought people were going to like and it's going to sell. I wanted to create something that I thought would explain these two. So I went in the opposite direction of them fighting with each other or sword fighting or one getting a hammer or, you know. So I thought, here it is. I wanted to find images where I thought, I'm like, oh, I could work with these. And both of them relaxed. And because The Quiet Before the Storm basically says it all. The minute these two wake up out of that nap, that comfort that they're in, what are they going to do? What they always do. Mm-hmm. They're going to chase each other. They're going to bonk each other. He's going to pull him by the tail and snap across the room. You know, he's going to light his tail on fire. And so I thought that this would be really, really good. And if there's anything Marcenivo loves, it's just leaning up against the wall and relaxing.
So Robert
a little hard in there. But yeah. I thought, and it's funny because I painted it and I showed it to my wife at first, and she goes, "It looks really good, but they look, you know, like them. They look like they're like I painted it almost like a cell." And I was like, oh, okay. So I needed to go back in and add more grays and more, you know, shadows onto both Tom and Jerry to make them all fit into the scene. But I love this piece. And it's probably the hardest one I struggled with in creating, just because I was trying to find that balance, you know, from them looking like them or them. I don't know. It just, but this, I came up with this, and I'm happy with it.
Love that. And so Robert chimes in as well as we had we have someone else on the in the meeting also, and they're like Two Mouseketeers. So there you go.
Yes. Yeah.
That was the cartoon. So Scott, can you roll the next image for me? Like there's some stuff. You've got one too, and it's called It Gets Me Higher, and it reminds me honestly of my son because he's got those headphones on and he's 16 and the headphones are always on. And but he's got that kind of dreamer aspect of things. And so it's that constant, like, you know, anything could happen. And I remember being 16 and I love that about him. This piece too that we have up there, can you see that one?
Oh, I'm still here.
Yes. So there was an instant attachment to this, and I think it's just how you did the composition and, you know, how that looks in that whole, I'm not going to go, you know, I'm not on the Titanic, right, with my arms out at the front and Jackson back me. It's not that kind of feeling. It's a better feeling. Mm-hmm. Can you explain a little bit on this piece?
Yeah. So I'm still here. I had done a few pieces, you know, when this whole COVID thing started and everybody was like, I don't even want to see the UPS man. Leave that at the end of the driveway for 7 days and hopefully it doesn't ruin. So, you know, this is, again, it's kind of like the Snoopy piece. There were, you know, that good things are coming. And this is what this piece is. This is about, I'm still here. You know, you've driven me to the edge of the world. And the little hearts are family and a supportive group of people that are with you. You know, the clouds in the background. Funny enough, I didn't intend to make them all look like rolling hearts. That is what they are. And it was pointed out to me by a fan who said, I love your heart clouds. I was like, holy crap, they are heart clouds.
And you're like, yes, that's exactly what I meant. Yes.
Yes. They were like, oh yeah, oh, you see that. Oh, that's great, great eye. That is not, it's one of those subliminal things. I guess Freud would have a field day with me. But this piece is about that. It's about that point where you feel, you know, you're at the edge and you're just not going over. It doesn't matter how many people push you from behind or what's pushing you, that's where you are. And that's why he's at the very edge and his little toes, you know, his little boots is barely hanging over. But that's what it is. It's just, I'm still here. It's going to take a lot more to get me to go off that, you know, than whatever it is. This is just that. That's what that piece signifies. And then the remark down at the bottom where Marcenivo is wearing a mask and the world has a Band-Aid on it, that has multiple meanings simply because I just watched, I saw a picture, I think it was last night or the night before, I showed my wife from two collectors here in Florida who are talking about how the beach where they're from has been sectioned off into squares and it goes down the entire beach. And the other person's like, oh, I was there and I saw this. And somebody asked what it was. And they said, those are turtle nesting areas. And then the saddest comment came after that, where it's been years since we've seen those. Now, you know, turtles don't breed every 7 years. They breed every year like everything else does. So then you start thinking like, man, that's really sad that, you know, it takes this horrific thing to happen to human beings for turtles to feel like, whoo, I don't have to go over a cooler or a bench or 14 cans or plastic to lay my eggs. So that's why the Band-Aid is on the earth. And, you know, and I know that some people don't like the mask, they like the mask, but I thought, I'm going to put Marcenivo with the mask, and that's simply for all the people that work in the industry of taking care of other people. You know, I think I know that if my doctor or Lauren's doctor showed up to do heart surgery and he didn't have a mask on, he would probably get a talking to or escorted out of that surgery by his neck. Put one of these things on before you go in there. So that is where that comes in. So that's where the remark and the piece I felt all went together.
Nice. And so love that story as well. And we've got some people who've been jumping on. And by the way, if you have a question, this is Facebook. We're out on Facebook Live and broadcasting. If you've got a question, you can pipe it in. That'll come through both channels. If you're on the Zoom link, you can pop something in the chat. You can do a Q&A. We'll definitely bring that up with Fabio. So we are getting some requests to see the new pen, to see the new pen and ink works.
Sure, we can do that.
If you don't mind, And I don't think we can get enough of these. So this is on that same like cold press paper, right?
No, this is actually, so yeah, we were talking about the paper. So this paper here, it is a, oh my God, it's 140-pound paper, but it's the warm press.
Okay.
And this is the same paper that I have used since 2001.
Really?
I do not buy them. I do not buy them cut to this size. I buy 30 by 40 sheets, and I fold them and tear them, fold them and tear them. These are all folded. I do every one of these, just like I did in 2001 till today. This is the same paper. So if you happen to buy one of these on eBay, 10, 15 years ago, this is the same paper. I love it. I've used the same pens for nearly 20 years because they don't, the Sharpies that I use on these don't bleed. You can get them wet and you can literally use a wet brush right over them. They don't bleed, they don't fall into the paper. And I love them. So that's right there. Yeah,
love that.
This one's Our Future is Looking Brighter.
And that's on both. I mean, we have them on both. So Scott, if you got a lower third on the link too for people watching.
Yep. And then this one is Welcome to the Family.
Oh, hold on. Let's go back.
Sorry, we're good.
There we go.
And then Welcome to the Family. Boo.
I love Marvin is my favorite, so I love this piece. And
so this was fun. I enjoy, it's like I enjoy throwing. Again, it's working with Scott and Linda Jones and everything else. I love that I'm just able to throw these characters that are iconic in with mine. I enjoy that. Huge feather, in my cap. I don't know. It's a dream, man. I can't express it enough. That as a kid growing up and watching these and enjoying them, laughing at the ridiculousness of them, to think that, someday, if I would have said it to myself when I was 20 years old, that by the time you get to be 48, you're going to be sitting and having a conversation in your living room through these devices that didn't exist when I was 19 years old.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that this is going to be my life. I would have just laughed you out of the planet. I would have like, right.
You're like an iPad? What the heck is that? That's what I would have told myself. I'm like, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm gonna be able to talk into my phone. Okay, you guys are smoking something because it's not gonna happen.
Like I can see people like Dick Tracy. I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then could you show that one with the foghorn leghorn one more time? Do you mind?
Oh yeah.
I love that. I love the way the chickens look.
So this one is, I say, pay attention, boys. So there they are.
And I can,
so
every
these
time. Go ahead.
Oh, so this little character right here, this one is actually called the Ambitious Chicken. And I have a series with him where he just, you can't tell him no. Chickens can't fly. So this little chicken is obsessed with rockets, and flying and diving off cliffs and wearing flight goggles and everything else. So the little black chicken and the little chicken with the running band or the headband, those are all created just for this piece. I've never done these before. So this
awesome.
little these
so
three little guys right here
Yes.
have never been created before. I specifically did them for this piece to show diversity and uniqueness and how basically we can all be one and go in the same direction.
Every time I see Foghorn Leghorn, it doesn't matter in what format it is. You hear his voice the whole time.
Oh yeah, easy.
I'll say, come on, boy, and I'm like, and then you start doing it, and you're like, I don't sound anything like it, but I can hear it in my head.
Oh yeah.
Like, and then I had to go into like the chicken hawk thing, you know?
Exactly. And the little skinny one with the blue bonnet.
Yes. I'm not even going to try to do that one, but yes. So, you've got in kind of what you experiment with as an artist, and, I assume you've got a sketchbook maybe laying around. I don't know. I don't even know if it's something that you would possibly show right now. I would die if you did.
Oh my sketch. What do I have? Is there anything in there? This is what I don't have a sketchbook. So here's the thing. So when I prior to signing in 2008, I would draw everything on a piece of printer paper, and that's how everything went. So as I started to create more things, everything that I do, from these guys here to you name it, everything up here has been doodled on a tiny format, on my iPad, on everything else has been done. And there's a sad part to the iPad, because you don't have a physical portion of it, or physical to store away for your kids down the road. I have 2 gray totes. I don't know how big they are. They're pretty big gray totes, probably 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep. And they probably weigh about 60 plus pounds a piece. And they're filled with sketches that I have done over the last, I don't know, decade, 2 decades, easy. I have stuff that dates back to 2000, 1996, 1998. I don't know if other artists do this, but I see things on eBay of my old stuff that I think is a good deal, and I buy it back.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's no joke. I do that. I have original pieces here that I've seen people sell on eBay, and I bought them back with no intention to ever sell them. Now they're just in my home. So I don't have a sketchbook. I have sheets upon sheets upon sheets upon sheets of paper that I have a drawer where I don't know if you're probably the same way. I have this old Husky.
Yes.
It's a tool drawer. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the colors are laid out. All the blues, the greens, the yellows, the reds, and all the grays and the black and whites are on the top one. And in the very, very bottom drawer, every time I draw something, I throw it in there. Draw something, I throw it in there. And once I think it's full, I grab it, throw it in the tote, bring it to storage.
So you know what I'm hearing right now? And I'm hearing the Fabio Napoleoni art of book. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing an art of book, and I'm hearing it probably could be that thick, right? So you would have to do some editing maybe, but I think that should come to fruition. I mean, I'm not saying you got all kinds of free time on your hands, but man, if you could, I would buy it. That would be at least 1 copy.
Yeah, it's a fun thing, and I think maybe 2 years ago, my friend who was working with me at the time said, "Dude, you need to seriously put that away somewhere. You just can't leave it underneath your desk." And I was like, maybe I will. And so one night I opened it and it started going through things, and I was like, there are things I think we tend to forget, or times, like we were talking about the stories earlier, how people have affected you. There were things in there that instantly, bring back a time or a place or a person, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to remember this. And then you don't, it's sad, but I would think that's probably, I'm sure you probably experience it too, where you're, as we now get older, you're like, oh, I need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I need to create this piece. And the sad part is, maybe we never get to create those pieces. And I think that's the sad part about when you create so much art that you kind of store it away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Chuck and Dr. Seuss, I've seen pieces that I'm like, how have I never seen this? And they're like, oh, that's because it was from his, a sketchbook or something like that. And then I wonder, it's like, oh, did they ever intend to paint that? you know? And I think of things like that. And I just, art book, I think I have the right person that would love to go through those, David. There's a gentleman I work with that would love for me to ship him those totes.
Those massive,
you never get them back.
Yeah, you'd have to, and you don't want to have to go buy all that back on eBay because that would suck.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure you understand. Ben, you have to. There's certain things you create. You're like, oh, you see it, you get excited. You're like, I'm gonna do this week, and then it doesn't happen.
And then it's like 3 months from then, and you're lucky if you wrote it down. I had one guy, and I don't know if you've ever met John Rowe. He's a fine artist. He's out in California. The guy is ridiculously talented. And I got to visit his studio, and the one thing he told, well, not one thing, he told me lots of things, and I'm sure you do this, was just write it down. Because if we all kind of, like, I don't know about you, man, but you got that ADD thing going, and it is working awesome, because that's how you can work on so many. That's how you got all those behind you done. All of these behind, right, is the switch, look, squirrel, nut, squirrel, this, and we get so caught up in that, and then just to write it down, because I'll forget, and I'll be like, remember that awesome thing that what was that again? So and that, which brings up, you've got a legendary character that you've developed, right? And actually several legendary characters, as you have this kind of world that you've created. Is there a Marcenivo doll coming?
That's probably one of the most asked questions. So we've tried. The gentleman David that I work with, I've known David for 7 or 8 years now, and we've tried, and we're just not content with the way things look. So we tend to set him aside. Dragon Boy has come out as a plush, and he was actually much easier. I think the original version was done by I think a lady in California, was done by hand, which I talked him right out of that. I told him that I would put him in my backpack if he'd let me have him, and I could walk the streets of ComicCon years ago, and he just never got him back. So he sits in my 10% of the closet that we have, and there he is. The rest of it belongs to my wife. But no, we've tried. That's why the sculpture was done. And I think if I could ask David, I think Scott and Toshi have probably sold more Marcenivo sculptures than anybody else.
Really?
I think. Yeah, I'm gonna say those guys have sold more. I think so. Yeah. So and that's as close as we've come to creating him and to the way he looks. But you just never know. I mean, he's the animated Marcenivo, and it looks fantastic. But the future is bright. So we'll see where we go from here.
So you've gotten to play with Marcenivo and put him into some situations, right, where you've gotten to transform into other things like Black Panther, that kind of stuff. And as it is Comic-Con week, you did show a little something that I would love to see again, which is 2 things: the Marcenivo Stan Lee and the Marcenivo Deadpool pin.
Oh boy.
I mean, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you didn't, I would be depressed.
So here's another thing about with Chuck Jones, it rarely happens. I mean, I go to shows and I typically bring 100 to 150 of these prints, but sadly this year we can't do that. So, but usually I go and I sit in the back room with Scott and Joel and Michael come in, and we talk a little bit and we sign everybody else's stuff, and these guys are always like, oh, let's do this. But every year I always try to pick a piece for them that I have done for them before. And I know that with the passing of this gentleman, there were some serious people that I know here in Orlando that were just devastated. And if there was one person on earth that could probably would have been voted to live forever, like the Yoda of humans, it would have been this gentleman right here.
Oh.
And I think, you know, his passing just destroyed a lot of people. And I think you always now, when you see the movies, you want that 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds of his cameos. You want that. But I did that piece, I think, not last year, the year before. But when I was thinking, and it's funny because the collectors always go like, "What's the freebie? What are you giving at Chuck Jones? What are you doing?" So I thought it was fitting that with everything that's going on this year, I thought it would be Stan would be the best one. And then I did a pin, Captain America pin for the gallery 2 years ago too. And that was ridiculously, there are people that are just, they trade them back and forth, they sell them on eBay. So this year I thought, again, it'd be fitting to have something that was iconic that I had done. So this fellow right here.
I couldn't get enough of that when you showed it the first time. It's so brilliant.
These guys, there is a limited amount of them, and I reserve them for the gallery. And what I mean by that is Chuck Jones comes first. The gallery comes first. Their clients comes first. So whoever orders a limited, an original, whatever the case may be, these guys will come first. And if you place an order and there's any of these left, of course you're going to get one. But you have to take, you know, the way it would be at a show, you would come in, there would be people that would stand there, 40, 50 of them for 3 hours. They would come in, they would stand there for 3 hours, and they would get one of these just like anybody else at a regular show. So with this, you know, with this year, which is amazing, they went with three exclusives. And I'll be honest with you, Ben, when Scott wrote back to me and he was like, "Can we do all three?" I had a small heart attack. I may have had an accident in my pants, and I thought, "Is this for real? Like 3 out of all the years I've been doing this and all the pieces, they've never come back to me and said 3." So I was like, "Sure, let's do it." You know. So with that being said, you know, we want to make sure the people who are supporting the gallery and Chuck Jones and everybody gets these. Anybody else after that, it will be shipped to the gallery. Whatever's remaining of the stand pieces will be shipped to Scott at the gallery. The same thing with the pins. So not just here, but these guys will also be able to use them at their location as well.
So if anybody buys, they buy something like an original limited, and we've got, if you can, Scott Ryder, can you start with 01, please? And let's go through those first 8 real quick. If they buy an original or a print, they get the Stanley and the Deadpool pin?
Yeah, exactly. So if, let's say, for instance, you're getting one of the limiteds, you're going to get both of those. On top of that, you're also, whether it's an SN or an AP, I'm going to doodle on the back of it for you. So it's just like if you, actually, there's actually more of a bonus, I think, with being stuck at home. Because, you know, as Scott will tell you, we go to a show and they may have 35, 45 pieces in the back. All those pieces will get signed. And then at a show, there could be another 40 people or so. All those guys are going to get their stuff signed. Now, if you show up on Sunday or Monday, you're like, "Oh, he's not here. Okay, I'll buy it." There it is. The plus side to this is now that the artwork is with me. So I will doodle on it for you. So if you buy a piece tomorrow morning, Monday morning, I'm still going to doodle on it for you. You're still going to get one of these. You know, like I said, these are a limited amount. So if you wait till the end of the month and you're like, "Oh, I have to have one of these," and maybe there isn't one left, or maybe there isn't one of these left, it's that's just the way it is. I mean, I didn't buy 1,000 of them. That makes no sense because it just doesn't. I also don't have, you know, I'm giving these away just because I can't, my relationship with Chuck and the ability to do Peanuts and Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers, I'm not going to create one of these and then put it on the side and make money off it without permission. That's just, that's not who I am. So I like to make sure I do things with the gallery and everybody's happy. And that's the way I like to do things.
So Scott, I want to go back to Fabio real quick because I just need you to, I need to stare and allow my eyes to drink in one more time the Stanley. And if you put them together, it'll be a double heart attack, but could you just hold them up one more time?
You mean like this? Oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
Like this.
Yes. Oh, come on. It's just brilliant. It's just freaking brilliant. I love that. Well, thank you, man, for putting those in. I will, like, I get that Black Panther. I'm going for the whole Marvel collection on that. So they can just send that to me. You know, as speaking of kind of like getting into some work and, you know, putting, you know, getting to play with different things like different IPs. Have you ever considered, we've got a question in, have you ever considered honoring like famous historical figures? So think of like an MLK or something like that, and, you know, creating a piece with that.
Those are things that I struggle with. And not because I don't want to make them, I worry of how it's going to be perceived. And I did a piece called The Tipping Point 2 years ago. And it's Marcenivo at the edge of a cliff, and he has his fist up in the air. And it's the lyrics of the message. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm just trying not to lose my head.
Hey, man, I go all the way back to the 90s. Yes. P. Diddy before he was P. Diddy. He was just Puff Daddy. Come on now.
So I did that piece, and it's all in black and white, except for the writing is in red. And I did it solely because I think at the time there was such unrest with everything that was going on. And I've always found that song, you know, like I said, I'm going to be 48. So I think it was 82 when it came out. So I was 10. And I loved it then. I love it now. It comes on the radio and gets my heart pumping. The music just gets me going. But the stance of Marcenivo is from the 1968 Olympics. When track stood there with the fist up in the air, and had the black gloves and the whole black power and the whole thing. And that to me is a strong stance for being 1968. You know, you do that today and it's misconstrued as something else, but I think it's still the same message. I don't know if it carries the same power it did in 1968, different times, but I wanted that piece to be that. And I was questioned. I think it was in Irvine. A gentleman came in and he bought the piece, loved it, told me how much. And then he asked me why did I do it? What did it mean? So as I went, I told him the same story I just told you, from the lyrics to the number of the edition, which is 19 APs, 82 SNs. 1982 was the year it was released. There are 5 FPs, because that stood for the Furious 5. That is the only edition, the only release I've ever done, Ben, but I never kept one for myself.
Really?
The whole entire thing sold before, like, it was just instant. I answered his questions, and then at the end of it, the gentleman had a great big grin on his face. He gave me a hug, and he was like, amazing. And so, but I've thought about it, and it's not, I will do something for sure. There's a lot of things that
yes.
I sort of stop myself sometimes from doing, because I think it might be a little too much.
So we've got, first of all, stuff is going, or I'm getting questions about, is this available? And I'm like, and then I'm asking, they're like, no. And I'm like, what about this? No. What about that? No. So that's a good thing. And right, I mean, I feel terrible, but at the same time, there's a lot of really awesome stuff. And what I wanted to ask you too about, like, I didn't touch on the witch hazel piece behind you.
Yeah.
And could you, like, Scott, can you put that one up on the main screen, and can we take a look at the witch hazel piece? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So you can take it off the wall and hold on. You got it. Okay. This piece, a collector here in Orlando, every October I do Halloween pieces. And I featured, Michael Myers. I've done Bunny Boozehound as Hannibal. I've done a whole bunch of my characters in scary formats, But last year, I think it was last year. No, I think it was the year before. Anyway, but I had a collector who reached out to me, and she's like, I love Witch Hazel. You should do something with her. And I was like, fantastic. So I had done this sketch right here, except that Marcenivo is just Marcenivo. He doesn't have the little attire that the little, he dresses when he knocks on the door. So it's just Marcenivo. There's no background. The floor is not there. The floating mirror, none of that is there. So I did it, and they liked it, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. If I ever have a chance again, let's see. And I wanted to do this, I think, last year, but I just didn't, like, Scott gives me a list of things, and I was like, okay, let's just go with that. This is amazing. But this year, when he threw out the ideas, I was like, oh, I'm going to see if I can squeeze this in. And I don't think I've ever done a piece where Marcenivo was about to get his noggin split in half with an axe. And I thought, there's still something humorous about it. And that's why, like, close your eyes, I have a surprise. Who has never said that to somebody? You know what I mean? And yes. So I thought it was fitting for this piece. But I Googled and watched the snots out of every one of these things to find that one that I was like, no, I'm going to go back to my original sketch. So I went back to the original sketch, and then I was like, I'm going to put the little dress on him. I'm going to put the sneakers. I'm going to, and after this whole thing was finished, it sat on my desk, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, something's not right. Something is missing. Something is missing. You know what? It was a scared heart. So that's why the heart is also off the ground, and like, oh my God, this is happening. So that's why that's there. And when Scott emailed me and told me that he wanted that as a limited, I was like, what? With the axe. And so I was like, all right, well, let's do it. So I love that. It started from a suggestion from a collector that turned into this painting, and then it turned into a limited. So we're going sort of full circle from when we started our conversation on how collectors and fans influence the art.
Yes.
This is where Chuck comes in, and then a request from a collector turns into a sketch, then turns into a painting, and now it lives in limited.
Which is awesome. And I know this one's available, and they've got, you got so much cool stuff as we were going through. When we've got, what did they say, that we got the 2 pen and inks, and then I've got my 2-year-old running through the door. This is the beautiful part about doing, I have 2 4, and I have 16, another 15. So I almost 15. So as you can imagine, getting in the COVID world of doing these things and having people, remember that dude, that British guy who had his daughter just pop in?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And now that's us all the time. And you're like, that's old hat. Come on. So as we're going through a couple of more pieces, I love your sketching style and just how you bring the characters out, especially the line work. Was there an early influence on you as you were kind of developing things that you're just like, wow? Because if you look at what, like, specifically the sketch that we have up on the screen right now, you know, you've got a heavier line weight around, you know, the outer line, and then everything within is, you know, just a thinner line weight, and it brings something completely different to the piece.
Yeah, that's all. If I were to credit anybody, it would be Chuck, Hanna-Barbera, all those classic artists, Disney, that influenced that type of art. There is a specific way that I paint that's in a format of when they do cells. I try to paint in that manner. One thing is solid, then you paint the next one, then you paint the next one, then you paint the next one. If you could peel, there were layers to my artwork, it would be sort of done the way the cells are done. You know, you could easily peel layer 1 and the hearts are removed. Yep. You could peel layer 2 and then Marcenivo's gone. You know, and then it's just the elephant and the tree. And that's the way I paint, because I watched how those were done. And that was the most comfortable way that I felt in painting. I watched a friend of mine named Gabe Leonard. I watch him paint, and I think to myself, like, how is stuff dripping and you're painting and you're like, I can't do that. You know, it's to me, that's too messy. It boggles my mind, but I like the way the classic cartoonists kind of did things in layers, you know? And that's just the way I do things. But the line work comes from that. That's where the line work, it originated in my mind. I love that bold outer line. And it's, you see it in, you know.
Yes. Yep.
In him. But the inside lines are thin. And that's just because I paint the inside of them, not a solid white, but there's grays and, you know, there's a shading to it. So the lines are thinner. But the outer line and the way things are done, it's all based on, when I do the pen and inks and the paper pieces, it's all that's where it all heavily influenced.
So we've got, and I love that. To me, I enjoy hearing other artists and what they put into it, why they use the styles that they do. I think it's fascinating. You've got again, viewers, for anybody watching on Facebook Live, or if you're in the Zoom chat with us, you can pop a question in, or, you know, feed it through the Facebook link. And they'll get it to us. So we've got a question from a viewer, and they're asking, what about a series of like an ode to fairy tales? Oh,
that's I'm sure we just discussed this a couple minutes ago. It's if I had $1 for every idea that I've had that doesn't come to fruition, I would just live off that. I think I did a Van Winkle, you know, where he's at the bottom of the tree and his beard's long. I've done that, but I would love to tackle fairy tales, or even you know, things about vampires, or Dorian Gray. You know, there's a lot of things that I think are so fitting to Marcenivo, Jekyll and Hyde. But things like that, be historical figures too. You know, I've thought of doing like Marcenivo's Abraham Lincoln. How freaking amazing would that be? You know what I mean? And tall hat and the long beard. You know, it would be amazing. But then it's the craziest thing, because I think I'm gonna do this today, and I shouldn't think it out loud, because the minute I say that, my wife is like, hey, here's 37 orders. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna happen today. Maybe tomorrow.
Right.
So it's, you know, knock on wood, it's good. And it's, you know, I plan on doing this for the rest of my life. So.
Well, and I was going to say, it doesn't sound like you have a shortage of content that you could do.
No, it's this thing works overtime. It's crazy.
So if
you know, I'm only actually 27 years old.
You what?
I said, I'm actually only 27.
Is that, hey, I mean, you have far less gray than I do, and I'm 41. So if that tells you anything, you could go for 27. I would buy it.
Yeah. No, it's the lighting. It's the lighting, man. That thing goes down. It's like a prune with hair. It's horrible.
You're like, someone get me the moisturizer. Come on.
Yeah.
So, exactly. You know, you've done a lot of great kind of mashups on things with Marcenivo, and, you know, like I got it right. I almost said Marcenique because you got into like Disney and stuff, and I'm thinking Marceline, and then I went Marceline and Marcenique, and I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like Gossamer, I love the painting of Chuck that he does, you know, and he's got that class in his style, and it's him with Gossamer and the nails, right? And you put Marcenivo into that scene, which we've got on the catalog, which you guys can see on the link. I love, like, those are classic, just, it encapsulates what, like, you can watch that whole cartoon. That's the moment that you'll remember from that cartoon.
Yeah. It's for sure. And strangely loving it is, you know, there was a, I think there was a time too when, you know, men couldn't get pedicures or manicures or get your hair done in a specific way, or, you know, or trim your beard or whatever it is. But I thought that just captured that. That's the first thing I saw when he's just painting his nails. Yes. I didn't think of, I thought like, I would love to just have the perspective view of someone from that time. That's like, why is he painting his nails? Why is he acting like that? But today we all do it. You know what I mean? It's you do those things. That's, you want to take care of yourself. And I love, that's why he's strangely loving that. He's just, I'm sorry, I like this.
Yes.
Do him up, you know?
And the fact that he can switch and go from a moment where he's being chased by a monster and flip it on the monster to sit
exactly
and give him an entire pedicure and a makeover. Well, that's what I love about the humor of Chuck and his team and Mike.
Exactly. Those are, yesterday I had a conversation with my friend David Corbett, and we talked about that. We talked about just the imagination, how you could go, you're doing one thing and all of a sudden, boom, flip the script, and then you're in this position. Why? Because that's imagination. That's what you enjoy. You know, those are things that make you stop and think and make you laugh and smile and sad. That's the part of that where I think, you know, for me, watching these cartoons still today, it's just, like I said, you go down a rabbit hole. You just like, boom, watching another one, boom. And YouTube is the worst. It's like crack. You're like, oh my God, I haven't seen that since I was like 12, boom. And then you're onto the Smurfs, and then you're onto the Care Bears. And I'm like, I'm 48 years old. Why am I watching the Care Bears? And then there's He-Man. And then, you know, you're just going down one thing after another. And it's just a beautiful nostalgic trip that you just get caught up in.
And they keep giving you all those recommendations. They're like, oh, if you like,
yes,
you must like this. How did you know I was going to like that? I could watch the Batman animated series all day long.
It's like at 2 o'clock in the morning, your phone goes, bling, and your wife's like, who is that? Oh, that's YouTube telling me Smurfs episode 86 is on.
And then she gives you like that Allstate commercial, was like, oh, really? It's YouTube? What's YouTube wearing right now? Yeah. Jake from State Farm. All right. Care Bears from YouTube, whatever you say. And you're like, no, I swear, look, I'm watching it right now. Yeah. And then she starts watching it with you, and it's 2:40 in the morning, and they're you know.
Yes.
That
is a fact. She's looking at me going like, we have done it.
Yep. Yeah. I've been there myself. So I've got a question from Mike. And Mike asks, you've got floating chunks of earth in your works. What's the meaning behind that?
So a lot of those are older, some of those are older pieces, but the floating earth is solitude. It's just your place that can't be reached by anybody else. That's what those pieces are. So you know, if you see, I think I'm trying to think of one. Leap of Faith is one, I think, that had a little floating earth, but that's what the little island in the middle of nowhere, that's what it stands for. It's your place of solitude. It's just you. Nobody can get to you. That's your peaceful place.
So have you incorporated some elements in before, you know, like previously, that maybe you're like, you know what, and it was maybe a one-time thing where you almost just kind of stuck your flag on the ground, you made a statement, you dropped the mic, and then you walked away, and that was it. It was only going to happen once. So like something like maybe a floating earth type thing, or you know how you got so much that you put in and there's all that meaning to it. You've got a lot of reoccurring stuff. Is there something where it just, you're like, I'm really only going to say this once?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, there's a piece that just stuck out in my mind is it's Marcenivo at the edge of a cliff, and he's dropping bombs on people. And that's the only piece that I can recall where he's actually like just releasing bombs. I had done also a piece about the 7 deadly sins, and it's just a heart, and he's standing in front of a pole, and there's signs all stacked up, and they're all pointing in different directions, and it's all the sins. So that's basically that's life. It's like which one of these do I pick? Where do I go? There wasn't hope on there. There wasn't enjoy life. These are all just the deadly sins. So that's one where I had done that. And I think the other ones too is like the Rebel or the Outcast series. I've done 3 where it's Marcenivo on a tricycle. The tricycle's black, and he's got a darker tone, and it's either my way or your way, or easy or hard. And in those pieces, basically, they're not the typical lovey-dovey, positive and hope. They're more about you as an individual making a choice in life, whether you're going to lead or, you're going to either follow what everybody else does, or you're going to be a leader, in those pieces. And I think the series too, similar to the I think I can and I will, was where the earth is sort of falling apart. Those are more about you as an individual, picking yourself up by the bootstraps and not letting the world take you down, opposed to having, the love and the relationship. Those are more about you as an individual, I think, than a relationship or something like that.
So
I think, yeah.
I love that. And I want Scott Ryder, if you can put up, we've got some more images of pieces, and I want everybody to be able to see these, Facebook and on Zoom. Yeah. So I love this piece. It reminds me of like a video game that I play with my kids, right? Which is, it's the one with the rabbits, and I forget exactly what it is, but it's Nintendo, and it has
the rabbits. I wish my son was out here. He'd be able to tell me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was, and they did like a mashup too, and I forgot what it was, but we would play this, and it kind of reminds me of that piece. Love this. Could you explain a little background on this piece?
Yeah. So this is Joker's Wild, and it's the 3rd in a series. I had done King of Hearts, Queen of Broken Hearts, and Joker's Wild. Yeah, right there. So this is, again, touching back on what we were talking about a little while ago, when you think of an idea and then how long it takes before it comes to fruition. So the King of Hearts, I had sketched it on a plane ride back, I think, somewhere. I had sketched it on a piece of paper, and I'm like, I'm going to paint this. And it was 2.5 years later when I actually painted that piece. 2.5 years later.
Wow.
And then I said, you know what? Every year I'm going to do another one. So I did him, and then I did the Queen of Hearts, and then Joker's Wild. And I was hoping, hopefully this November, December, there'll be the 3rd. What the goal is to have all the top tier of the deck of cards. That would be awesome. Yeah. So that's the whole point. You must know David Lowenstein.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. So,
I've been to his house, which is like the Napoleoni like museum, maybe I could call it. Holy crap.
So he said to me, when you first walk in, his dining room table's there, and he has a king and queen. And he said to me, "Are you coming up with another one?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Crap." Then he goes, "How many of them do you plan to make?" I go, 5. And he's like, "Crap." So, it was kind of funny. I was like, I think I had 2 more after that. So, but that's the whole thing. I want to do the 5 of them. But this piece, the Joker's Wild, I don't know. I just thought I wanted him to obviously have all, because he's a Joker, so you're gonna have all the the sets.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. There's just something about Bunny Boozehound. He is, on his left hand, you see he's got his, like, he's snapping his fingers, and that one little heart is floating.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted him to have a little different vibe, not so lovey or, like the other 2, more of carefree. That's why he's got the other bunny's head, the sweeter looking bunny on a stick, He's a little bit darker than the other 2. But
which is okay, because you kind of,
yeah. This guy over here loves martinis, so that's why you usually find him with one.
Well, we'll give one more shout out to Dave, because I think he's on, or was on, still on, watching, and he has a healthy love for your artwork, and I was totally blown away by his collection in his house.
Dude, I've never seen. It's outside of the collecting of the art, and I think it was upstairs, this loft area, all the one of a kinds that were in there. I know that my son and my nephew walked in there. My son was like, "Holy crap!" Like, it is just so overwhelming. And then when you stop and you look at the display case, and then the next display case, I think you could literally spend days in there admiring everything in there. And then when you walk around the kitchen, and then there's a giant Roadrunner and Wile-E, and you're like, who owns this stuff? Like, you think these things exist? They do, at David Lowenstein's house.
And you know what? They do. So we went there, and I had my 2-year-old was, I want to say, like 1.5. So this was like last fall, and my 4-year-old was 3.5. And we were the only ones, because I like to travel with my family when we go do all those kind of things. Like, I want you to experience what I'm experiencing, because for me to do it just by myself all the time would suck. So I bring them along, and I'm like to my wife, and then I looked at the other 2, and I'm like, all right, Hunter, who's 1.5, I'm like, don't you touch a thing. I'm like, you can have some grapes, you can have some crackers, you can have some cheese. And I'm like, and you don't touch those walls. No. So, but Dave was he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And I love his passion for collecting and what he does. So, as we kind of bring that up in people that you meet, right, and experiences that you have, Dave being the pinnacle, right? Is there something, as you've gone around, like, especially maybe a moment that you've shared with, family, whether wife and bringing your kids, or just you and your wife, or with a collector, that you were just kind of, not that you don't need any validation for what you do, but it makes you feel something like, I'm why your purpose is, and you're doing it, and you just feel in that moment like, man, I'm blessed. And in a way that you didn't even think, it just kind of comes over you, like,
Well, I think it was the again, to go back to David, it was the I met him multiple times. I think at Chuck, at Irvine, multiple galleries. He had flown out with him and the guys. And we had talked, and he always wanted Nicole to come, but Nicole was my son, my nephew, and my buddy Dan was traveling with me, and he invited us to his house. But I think, to me, was walking into his home, how gracious he was. It's the, you tell your kids, this is what I do, this is where I go, this is how people react, and this is how people treat you, and this is how people admire the artwork. But it really, for my son and my nephew, was meeting David and going to his home and being gracious, and then taking us out to dinner, and I going through every single piece in his home, not just mine, but Chuck's and Warner Brothers and everything else. I think my son and my nephew got an understanding of why I travel so often, why, you know, the people that buy the artwork and why they like the artwork. And then on top of that, with David's experience, not only did you see a collector who loves the artwork and collects art and the folders and the Virgil Ross and all the stuff that you just, for me, it was like, holy crap, somebody actually owns this stuff. Somebody actually has this and they're sharing this with you. But they were there and they noticed, and then they got to not just that, but you got to see who he is. How there were points he talked about his collection and who he is and how he got started and what he does. And I think that was the point where my son, I think it was the first or second year that he had traveled with me, that was like, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. That was just like, that is the coolest thing. And I think that was an understanding of, now he's 21 years old, going to be 22. Nikki has been traveling with me for about 6 years. And now and she's met David a bunch of times. You get to meet these people that collect your artwork. And then it's just more than just a collector. You know, you meet them and you shake their hand and you give them a hug. And then you go out to dinner afterwards. And you're not talking art. You're talking, you know, you're talking their business, your family. And I think that's the part of what I do that I enjoy more than anything else. I know I have to create the art, which gives me the avenue for that. But it's the meeting of people like David and Ali Webb and Trisha Webb. Oh my God, Corey Taylor from Mass. I can't even. I'm like, my mind's
you can't
boggled.
forget any name now. You've got to list it all.
Yeah. It's you just start going through these people that collect the art, and they, oh my God, Brad and Jamie, and they just come. The Rodriguez girls that always come to the shows, and I wish I remember his name, his father and his son, that kind of stand there for 4 hours. And I'm like, are you guys okay? Yep, we're just waiting our turn. And then I'm like, what number are you? We're number 12. I'm like, you're number 12? I'm like, I'm 47. They're like, yeah, we just enjoy watching. They never took their turn. Like, they literally watched, you know, somebody else. And that part of all of this is the part I enjoy. I think that's there is no certain individual, people that always come, and in the relationships they built too. That's the other part that blows my mind. The people in line, because they're standing there for 3 hours. They're like, this is my new best friend now. Thanks to you for taking so long. But it's this is a gift, man. This is what me and you do for a living. How fantastic is that?
And you know, and that brings up, we're almost, unfortunately, because you're one of those people that you could hang out with pretty much the entire night, right?
Dude, I'm gonna tell you this, man. I know we don't have another show scheduled between Chuck and I, but I would do this again with you in a heartbeat.
And I would double down on that and say anytime, because there's just there's a quality, and getting to do this and interview other people as Craig and I have done these Creativeside chats. It's been awesome, because you kind of figure, when would we'd be in San Diego hopefully right now, you know, at ComicCon and doing it. But the fact that we can do this anytime, and we kind of figure this way out of just reconnecting with people, even if we can't be there in person, I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got questions and queries for, you know, more down the road, and because I would love to know, as you know, as an artist, who would you want to collect, you know, and those kind of things, like what would inspire to put something on your wall. And I'm getting something from Scott before I can't leave this. It says you promised something to Tashi in Santa Fe.
Yeah, Tashi's my boy.
So I don't know what you promised to him.
No, it's I'm gonna send him some of these Stan Lees and some pins. I'm gonna hook my boy up. He's my man.
He is. Well, and he's a Cubs fan, and like, look, man, I waited, you know how long I waited for a championship? A long time, right? Will I ever see one again? I don't know. But we did get one, and so I'll take that. So Tashi is a fellow Cubs fan, and we share that affinity. I just want to say, as we, Scott, if you can put real quick, Ryder, up one more little round as we kind of close out here with Fabio. Dude, for especially, like, you can meet some people sometimes, right? And there's kind of like an instant hit off, and they're just natural, down to earth people who are very cool, and you just get along. And I can tell the entire audience from a fact of I have never had the pleasure of meeting you in person. Man, you are as solid as it comes, and what a delight it has been. Like, I could nerd out with you all day long, but like there's so much to, and what I appreciate, you know, is the thought and the purpose that you put into your own work, you know, shows, you know, you and your family, the stories, how that comes along. I have a great respect for you, even in the short amount of time I've been able to get to know you, of not speaking artwork wise. I'm speaking just as a human being, as a family man. Dude, I have a great amount of respect for you, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to sit here with you tonight and play with thousands of people all over the place watching. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of Chuck Jones Gallery Comic-Con at home.
Yeah, dude, it's 100% right back at you. I would do this again. I mean, if it was just you and I, if we can, you know, get some people to come in, ask questions, go back and forth on anything about the art that I collect here. Let's talk. Let's just go back and forth. It's fun. This is great. This is very different than what I've done in the past. It's very comfortable. It's not very often that I'm able to just sit and have a conversation with another artist. I can't think, I don't know, can you think of another time that's ever happened? No, this might be the first time where we just sit here. Wait a minute. I take that back. I have had a conversation with a couple of artists before. You're the most down-to-earth dude. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, man.
Here's the best part, dude. You know what it is? There's no egos in this conversation. So
no.
That's the best part about it. I would do this with you again in a heartbeat.
Well, I appreciate that, dude, and I will certainly take you up on that. And even though I am currently residing in the state of Illinois, in the Chicagoland area, there will be traveling down south, and not too often the distant future here. It will be permanent. So,
cool.
So maybe there's even a closer connection too.
Yeah, by all means, dude. Honestly, it's after we get off this, we'll exchange information. You land here in Florida, Orlando. We'll connect.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, man. I want to remind everybody as we close out tonight that Fabio's got a lot of great work and pieces. I know I've been getting notes and comments out the waz on, like, what about that? And is this? Yes, that's available. Yes, you can get that. Go to this, grab that person, contact over here, and just loving what you're putting out. So what I want to do is everyone to the auction site, which is the bit.ly link. So Scott, real quick, if you can put on the bit.ly/Napoleoni Studio, and everybody can hit there for the auction site. It's currently going on. You can bid on pieces. I want to thank Dave Lowenstein, says the best show ever. Come on, you gotta. We'll give a high five to Dave Lowenstein for that comment. So thank you so much, guys. Fabio, thank you so much. Thank you, wife, for helping you and just being a part of this and making the show great. Have a fantastic evening, sir, and we will catch you soon.
Right to you, my friend. Take care.
Thank you, buddy.
We'll see ya.
Later, man.